are here to discuss the life and times of the late, great Roddy Piper, who unfortunately passed away Thursday night, was found sometime on Friday, according to TMZ Sports, dead. Age 61, just a tragedy. Well, what can we say? I mean, Dusty Rhodes died. That was gigantic. A year ago, Ultimate Warrior died. That was gigantic.
Up, everybody?
I mean, it's just it's just I don't know what to say. Just really, you know, I don't know. Just a shocker.
Times of the late,
Man, just a shocker. It really is, and my voice is playing in the background there. Not really sure why. Let's get Scott on. Scott, this is a kind of an eerie story. We were talking the other day on who to book for interviews, and I've been actually getting a lot of guests lately, which I'll tell you guys about in a little bit. And you suggested, why don't you book Roddy Piper? He's in the news. He probably has an interesting take on the Hogan stuff and everything going on and just his career. And I said, you know what? That's a good idea. And I literally looked up his info today. I tried to book him years ago and was unsuccessful. And lo and behold, I came home and got a message from you and found out that he passed away, man. What are you feeling right now?
Yeah, definitely some shock. I'm actually at work right now, sitting in my office, and I was out, doing my job. I don't even know what time it was, maybe around 6, and my one guy on the radio said, "Hey, Rowdy Piper just died." And I'm like, "Ha, yeah, funny." He said, "Nah, TMZ Sports reported it." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I looked it up. I'm like, "Oh, crap," And then you start reading everything, and yeah, it was definitely a shock to say the least. He's definitely been in the news a little bit lately, just with everything going on with Hogan. And yeah, I mean, definitely unexpected, definitely sad. Another good one gone too soon, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, this dude was a former U.S. champion, Intercontinental champion, tag team champion. He was one of the building blocks around WrestleMania 1. Okay, not WrestleMania 21, WrestleMania 1. He was the number one rival of arguably WWE's biggest star ever, Hulk Hogan. Okay, so that tells you the significance. I mean, he was right up there with Hogan, on the heel side of things, and just had an unbelievable legacy in the WrestleMania era. He had that feud with Mr. T, which did not produce the best matches, but it produced a whole lot of money. And then you talk about, later in his career, Bret Hart, that one time I believe they wrestled each other one-on-one, unless they wrestled sometime in Stampede Wrestling, but to the best of my knowledge...
No, they did.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the only time they wrestled in WWE... I think it was WrestleMania 8 or WrestleMania 9.
WrestleMania 8, yeah. WrestleMania 8 for the IC title, yeah. Bret Hart beat him.
Yeah, great match for the IC title. I mean, yeah, and then later in his career, I mean, he had a kind of a renaissance. He had the Hollywood Backlot Brawl with Goldust, which was a classic for WrestleMania 12. He ended up appearing in WCW and having a feud with Hulk Hogan that drew a lot of money for a little while before that got all burned out. I mean, he even beat Hulk Hogan. Granted, it was a non-title match, which WCW conveniently forgot to mention. I believe it was either Halloween Havoc 96 or Starrcade 96. But, yeah, man, I mean, people love Roddy Piper. And even as recently as 2005, he had a great confrontation with Stone Cold Steve Austin, which obviously has all kinds of irony these days. But, it was kind of like a dream confrontation between Stone Cold and him. And, yeah, I mean... Just sad. It's just sad. This is a guy that is so influential. He's a lot like Dusty Rhodes. He's somebody that touched so many lives, positively influenced so many lives. Not just at the box office and the employers he worked for, but a lot of wrestlers growing up, and even MMA fighters. I mean, Rowdy Ronda Rousey. She got her nickname from Roddy Piper. She got it with Roddy Piper's blessing. Chael Sonnen, and the way he cuts promos. I mean, this guy was just so influential. I mean, from his time in Portland Wrestling under Don Owen to NWA to the World Wrestling Federation to later WCW and then back to WWE. It's almost kind of sad that some younger fans had to see him recently as kind of like a caricature of himself, a parody of himself. Because this guy, man, in his prime, I mean, he had the look, he had the swagger, he of course had the talent. I mean, he was in terms of a heel, he was the total package.
Yeah, he was the number one heel, and I mean, you mentioned WrestleMania 1 being focused around him. WrestleMania 2 even with Mr. T, and one of the first, if not the first, big wrestler to go into movies. He did some acting, obviously. So yeah, definitely. I mean, he was icon might get thrown around a lot, but I think you could definitely say he was an icon. Definitely a little before his time. Well, way ahead of his time, I guess I should say. But yeah, he was one of a kind, that's for sure.
He was one of a kind. He wasn't afraid to push the envelope, and there's only one hot rod. By the way, if you guys do want to call in with your favorite Roddy Piper memories, as opposed to just tweeting them or leaving a comment below, all you have to do is hit us up on Skype at the Sports Courier. It's one word, the Sports Courier. You can hit us up on Skype, and we'll take your favorite Roddy Piper memories. Just I still can't believe it. Scott, any memories that come to mind for you that are your personal favorites of Hot Rod?
Well, I can give you a personal memory, and it's kind of not wrestling related, but I had a chance to meet, before I knew you, and back a few years ago, I had a chance to meet him. He was at a convention doing an autograph signing, and I just didn't want to spend the price that he was asking, and it wasn't a ton of money, and I regretted it, the day I left there, and now it's just like, I really should have done this. And, so I kind of feel bad about that. That was one of those personal memories. Wrestling-wise, one of the memories I have of him, and, obviously I'm a little older than you, but even he was a little before me. But, with SummerSlam coming up, I remember, the classic thing he did at SummerSlam 1989 was between the Ultimate Warrior and Rick Rude. He comes out, and, Rude's doing his, Rick Rude's doing his little, I don't even know what you call it, but anyway, Piper turns around, bends over, and lifts up the kilt, presumably to show Hot Rod where the sun doesn't shine. Warrior pins him and, takes back the IC title. But, besides that, the classic part about that is after the match, he does the interview with Mean Gene in the back, and, this guy's one hell of an actor. This guy had one too many that when he went on camera. But it was a classic as far as that goes. You mentioned some of the other things he did. He was, even he had a big moments with the NWO back in WCW. When Bischoff turned and joined the NWO, that was the segment focused around Piper.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even now he was past his prime, but he was still looked at as one of those guys, you can talk about some of the, controversial things he did at WrestleManias, and, he's the guy who hit Jimmy Snuka with a coconut.
Yeah.
Just a lot of memories about the guy, wrestling wise. Like you said, he had the look. He didn't have, he wasn't the biggest guy. He wasn't a 300 pounder, but he was just, he was the ultimate a-hole back in the day. That's the best way to put it, and no disrespect, but it's just the truth. If you go back and, now with the WWE Network, he didn't hold anything back. And even, as he became beloved by fans, it was the same thing. He was who he was. WrestleMania with, Morton Downey Jr. with the, when Piper's Pit and all that, just a lot of memories the guy had, man. It's really a shame.
Yeah, Piper's Pit, how can we not talk about that? The original talking segment, talk show segment for a wrestler. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think anybody else had anything like that, prior to Roddy Piper. And I remember, for younger fans, they might not know this, but about 10 or 12 years ago, for whatever reason, WWE started replicating Piper's Pit. Roddy Piper returned to WWE in the early 2000s, had a brief feud with Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon. It was very convoluted in a weird time. He returned at WrestleMania 19, and he brought back Piper's Pit. And around the time he brought back Piper's Pit, which is a legendary talk show segment on the wrestling shows for WWE, they had the highlight reel with Chris Jericho. And later they had Carlito's Cabana. And then Christian's Peep Show. And even, I think a couple years later, the Cutting Edge with Adam Copeland, with Adam Edge Copeland. And it was overkill. Miz TV.
Miz TV, yeah.
Yeah. And for people that think, oh man, these are a waste of time and whatever, you're right. Nowadays, these, for the most part, are complete wastes of time. But Roddy Piper at his peak, even when he wasn't at his physical peak, but still at his promo peak, those Piper Pits were amazing when it came to selling angles, building up feuds. Talking about, the Jimmy Snuka one and, Morton Downey and even like years later with the number of different feuds. The guy was just a great talker. He could really build up a feud. It kind of reminds me of Mick Foley a few years back before they kind of made him into a comedy character. They used to kind of remember when they used to bring in Mick Foley to kind of emphasize how serious a feud is? You know, I think the most notable one was like Edge versus Undertaker in 2008. It was kind of like that with Roddy Piper a few years before that. You know, they'd bring him in like once a year. He'd do like the little Piper's Pit thing with some of the modern stars and just get them to get all hyped and everything. It's just, yeah, I mean, that guy in his prime, and not even in his prime, but when he was on, can sell an angle. He can sell ice to an Eskimo. That's how good this dude was. He was just so great. And I highly recommend any younger fans to go to the WWE Network, watch some of those old school Saturday night main events, watch those WrestleManias, watch all those pay-per-views from the 80s and early 90s, even some of the stuff he did in WCW. But also, too, go on YouTube, look up all the classic Piper's Pits, excuse me. They were great. He even had an incarnation of it for a brief period in TNA called In the Pit with Piper in the early days of TNA.
Oh my God!
Yeah, when they were just when they were just trying to sign every name in the book, and he did that.
2003. Yeah, I have the Wikipedia page up, just trying to get some memories in my head. And yeah, 2003. You're right.
Did a lot of indies. I think didn't he wrestle Terry Funk in a match on the indies? Like 5-6 years ago.
He did.
He even won the tag titles of Ric Flair back in 2006.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he was.
And he was at WrestleMania 25.
Yeah.
With Snooker and with Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah, against Chris Jericho. Although by that point he really couldn't go, unfortunately.
No, he had injuries and he had the hip injury, and so yeah, it definitely wasn't a shell of what he was in the ring, of course, but yeah.
Cody Collier is a younger fan here. He says, my favorite Piper's Pit moments that I started watching was when Piper had the Shield on in Old School Raw, 2014.
Yes.
That was actually, now thinking about it, that was probably the last memorable, I mean, I don't know if that was the last time he was actually on their TV, but that was like the last real memorable Roddy Piper segment on WWE, because if you remember, they did something with Cyndi Lauper. He presented her like a golden record or something, and they made a complete parody out of it. Probably because Roddy started going off the rails, which is he started doing later in life, which is kind of sad, but that's what he was doing. So I guess Vince just instructed Cole and everybody to bury the segment, and it became a joke and everything. But yeah, I mean, again, when he was on, he was able to just sell an angle, and he really, I remember that kind of. Try to think, was that the one where he was trying to tease tension between them?
Yeah, I would have to go back. I don't remember, to be honest. I would say yes, it was.
I think it was the one where
when
he was trying to, like,
Seth Rollins teased walking out back then. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you know what? That was the one where he had that weird stare down with Dean Ambrose.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, now I remember. Yeah, it's funny how some of the angles today are like so. I would say forgettable, but hard to remember. But the stuff that guys like Piper and Dusty did, those live forever.
And keep in mind, he also did an episode of a Celebrity Wife Swap with Ric Flair. So if anybody really wants to have some fun, go back and try to find that. That was a couple years back. But yeah.
Let's get AJ right here. We get him on. AJ, you're on the line. What's going on, buddy? Hello, AJ. Scott, you still there?
I'm here, Fred, yeah.
All right, let's see. AJ, are you there? Going once, going twice. All right, doesn't look like we have him on. We'll try to get AJ back on. But yeah, he tweeted me earlier and said that he fell to the ground when he found out about Piper. I mean, it's a sad story, and he resonates with generations and generations. And the thing is, it's not like you watch Roddy Piper, a match from 20 years ago or even 30 years ago, or a segment, and you say, oh man, this sucks, this is old, this is that. I mean, a lot of his stuff ages so well because it was so revolutionary for its time, and it's like Dusty Rhodes too. You watch a Dusty Rhodes promo and some highlights of Dusty's feuds with like Ric Flair and Terry Funk, and then you see the stuff with Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper. I mean, the guys today, and I don't necessarily blame them because they're scripted and it's an overly produced environment, but they can't touch these guys like Piper and Hogan.
Yeah, no, Piper especially because his. He had that very, I won't say Mick Foley, I'll say Mankind-esque promos, but you just didn't know, what, if it was real, fake, written, not written. I mean, he was one of those off-the-handle guys for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And like you said, he kind of went really off the handle a little bit. here and there. But WWE, like Vince McMahon always said, he would bring him back. So and that's what he did.
Yeah, just still crazy. Cody says, also, I remember Roddy was at WrestleMania 31 congratulating Daniel Bryan in a backstage segment. Yeah,
That's
that was
correct,
cool.
yeah.
Actually, that would have been maybe his last TV moment for WWE. That was a nice moment where he did the yes thing and emphasizing the importance of the IC title.
Yes, yeah, you're right. That might be.
But
I think that was the last time he was on WWE
actually,
TV.
you're right. Yeah, well, there you go. Better
He's right.
better than some forgettable comedy segment, right?
Well,
Well, it
yeah,
was comedy, but you know what I mean. It was a nice moment.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
It was in there.
yeah.
No, it was definitely, yeah.
Lee Lombardi, loved Piper's Pit with Bruno, one of the best. And
Yeah.
let's see. Do you remember Piper's Pit with Roddy, Bryan, and AJ Lee? Vaguely.
I kind of do, very, very vaguely. I'm looking at it again online, so it kind of brings back vague memories of it. I remember when he joined WCW at Halloween Havoc, somebody missed their cue because I remember the bad plates played for about, it seemed like 2.5 minutes before he came out, which was horrible. But quick story about that is a friend of mine. We were at a friend's house watching. There was 3 of us, and just out of nowhere, he goes, wouldn't it be something about he Piper joined WCW, and then at the end of the main event, there was Piper. So just one of those very odd types of things. But yeah.
Jeremy Sasser says Miz should be proud he was Roddy Piper's last in-ring opponent. Really? That I didn't know.
Wow, I didn't know that either.
That's an interesting trivia note.
And that's.
Yeah, Roddy Piper is such a huge story. I mean, tons of people tweeting about it. Variety covering it. You know what's weird to me? WWE waited a half hour after everybody else to tweet about Roddy Piper. Actually, maybe more. Because Dana White, the UFC president, who rarely, if ever, talks about pro wrestling, who doesn't even claim to be a wrestling fan, tweeted a picture and said, "This day sucks, R.I.P. Roddy Piper." Long before, long before Triple H, long before Vince McMahon, and long before the official WWE Twitter account. I mean, I know you gotta wait and see if it's real or whatever. I mean, really, if TMZ's reporting it and then multiple sources on top of that were reporting it, like, how do you... Yeah, I think it was just a case of somebody in WWE social media falling asleep at the wheel. I know it's a Friday, you know what I mean? It's, usually a slow news day, stuff like that. Nothing goes on, but yeah, I don't know. They kind of dropped the ball there. It was comical in an eerie way to see ROH, TNA, Dixie Carter, Dana White tweet about Roddy Piper before the 2 men in charge and the official WWE Twitter account. That was just weird to me.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, like you said, though, I think WWE wanted to wait to make sure they had confirmation because what I read was, it said something about the rumor to have died or something to that, so maybe they just wanted to wait until it was official not to look stupid, where instead they ended up kind of looking stupid because it took so long,
Yeah, just it sucks right here. Glenn Gilberti, aka Disco Inferno, who's a buddy of mine, said, actually, buddy might be a very in a loose way. He's a good guy, but he's an infamous Twitter troll as well. He be heard on MLW Radio, aka Disco Inferno. Says, getting to watch workers like Roddy Piper entertain on a weekly basis. R.I.P. Your influence on the business will live forever. Ain't that the truth? See a few people here. Fred, what is your personal favorite Roddy Piper moment? There's a lot of them. I love the coconut with Jimmy Snuka. I mean, Roddy Piper was, like you said, was such a great a-hole. I love the match he had with Bret Hart at WrestleMania. I remember Brian Dermody, who I worked under at Spike when I was an intern. I came in a little early to the office before I officially could start. So I was like eating breakfast or whatever, and he's a huge wrestling fan. And we're talking and chatting up and everything. And he goes, he mentioned he has a lot of wrestling memorabilia at his desk. And he mentioned something about Bret Hart and Roddy Piper. And I said, "Oh, I heard that was a great match." And he got really angry at me. He looked at me and he goes, "You've never seen that match?" I was like, "No." He goes, "Watch the match." He would not let me start work until I watched that match. So before my shift, I watched Roddy Piper and Bret Hart. I think on not social media, Daily Motion. Excuse me, it was on social media, of course. And great match. I think it was like 21 at a time. Time flies, but yeah, man, everybody loves Roddy Piper, or love to hate Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see here. Roddy Piper deserved to be WWE champion. He did, but you know what? He was one of those rare guys that really didn't need to be. I mean, he drew just as much money as the world. Well, maybe not as much as Hulk Hogan, but there were times he drew a ton of money. I mean, he went hand in hand with Hulk Hogan, with the angles that they were a part of, and there were times even in WCW where he drew money. I mean, just all throughout his career. My point is, he's out him as an entity himself outdrew probably most world champions in the history of this business. I mean, he was that big of a star. Dusty Rhodes too. Dusty Rhodes only had the world titles for a cup of coffee, but he was such a big star. You would think that he was a former champion because that's how big he was. He was bigger than a title. He was bigger than a promotion. He was larger than life.
No, yeah, I agree with that. No doubt about it.
Hey.
I mean, you could even say he made Hogan. Hogan was very popular at WrestleMania, but after the feud with Piper, I think he went up another level even. And that was all because of Piper.
Okay, let's see. Marcus Ryan, when Hot Rod and Jimmy Snuka were both in the Rumble 2008 and they had an epic stare down, everyone in the ring stopped. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of those dudes in that ring were marking out, man. It's crazy. I interviewed Frankie Kazarian, the current Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion, former TNA Tag Team Champion. He was trained by Killer Kowalski. He was also trained Triple H and Perry Saturn and countless others. And Killer Kowalski, pioneer, legend in the business. And we were talking about how, Killer Kowalski was long passed away now. Guys like that are kind of a dying breed. People's heroes are from wrestling's past are dying. And it's unfortunate. And, where are those veterans to not only preserve that wrestling history, but pass on that knowledge, to younger wrestlers? And the irony of that, we talked about that for a few minutes, and, look what happened. So if you're a fan and you want to learn more about the history of this business and just, how we got from here to there, whether you agree with the current direction of what's going on or not, I strongly suggest you seek out some interviews. Not just the interviews we've done. We've interviewed a lot of veterans too, but just in general. Maybe read some books. I strongly suggest reading Wrestling Observer, listening to the Dragon King Carl Stern, who's a great wrestling historian. There's a number of other historians as well. And also, the easiest way, just going on WWE Network. Browsing around, watching old pay-per-view. Or even if pay-per-views are too long for you, watch some of the documentaries. Roddy Piper's documentary's on there, Born to Controversy. It's a very good one. You got Billy Graham's documentary. I mean, just... It's important.
Most of what WWE does documentary-wise is very good.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, exactly. So I think if you're a fan, it's important to at least have an idea of the history. And if your only memories of Roddy Piper or only image of him is from 2008, I'm not hating on that. Obviously for younger fans, whatever. But I think you owe it to yourself to go out of your way to watch that. It's like a great basketball player. It's like enjoying LeBron James today, but not understanding the greatness of Michael Jordan or Larry Bird or Magic Johnson, before Kobe and LeBron. I mean, really, it's like that. I mean, this is the wrestling equivalent of losing like a Magic Johnson or a Larry Bird, at that level. Like imagine one of those guys, or in football losing like Roger Staubach, or it's just. Yeah, I hope we don't have to read about a story like this for a long time after this. I really hope not, because this summer's been brutal. The Dusty Rhodes thing. I mean, this last couple years have been brutal. Ultimate Warrior 2. Ugh, man. Hardcore WWE. Sorry? Yeah. Hardcore WWE. Piper's Pit with Stone Cold WrestleMania 21. That was great. That was like a dream confrontation. That and even the promo battles we had with Jericho when Jericho was a heel were pretty epic. Talvin Kipapa quotes Roddy Piper's famous quote, "When you think you have the answers, I change the questions." Yes, for sure.
Real quick, TMZ, I'm on their site looking up some things. They actually put a match, which is an interesting match, and I never even thought of to watch. It looks like a house show match. It was Roddy Piper versus Mr. Perfect back in 1991.
Wow, I gotta check that out then. That's a rare.
Yeah, I never saw it, but I'm just kind of skimming through it, and Piper was still in pretty good shape, and he's moving around pretty good. So obviously, definitely, for anybody listening or watching this, on SoundCloud or YouTube, I think I just plugged, kind of two of the big ones there. Go back and definitely take a look at that on WWE Network. You'll enjoy it. Just watch the promos. I mean, even if you have to go on YouTube and just type in Rowdy Piper promos, Piper's Pit, look at the old 1980s stuff and even like early 90s if you really want to understand what this guy was. Not so much, later in like 2008, 2009. Look at the old 80s and early 90s. And even some of the WCW stuff wasn't too bad, but even that,
Yeah. No, like I said, I mean, you owe it to yourself to go out of your way. I mean, it's entertaining as well. You know what I mean? I mean, the people that can sit through a 3-hour Raw can surely sit through a 5-minute promo with Roddy Piper. I mean, it's greatness.
Absolutely.
You're watching greatness, and you'll probably never want to watch a Seth Rollins promo again after that.
Yeah, and here's the thing: if you've never seen one, I'm going to warn you. It's not something where these guys are, necessarily nose to nose, face to face, jumping around the ring. It's not what you see nowadays on WWE.
Where they cater to the dumbest of the dumb, and they have to explain everything to you like you're a baby, when you should be able to have some legs to figure it out for yourself.
Exactly. Some of his promos were backstage vignettes. He was sitting down with somebody or this and that. So take the time to watch it. It might come off like the first minute you might think, oh God, this is boring. I'm just sitting here watching two guys talk. It was so much more than that, and that's what you have to watch.
WCW Worldwide on Twitter pointed out that they posted on WWE.com a photo gallery of Roddy Piper's milestone moments. 0 Hulk Hogan photos.
Well,
I know, politics as usual. Not that I have any particular sympathy for Hulk Hogan, but I'm just saying. I mean, they are intertwined.
They are. No, I mean they absolutely are. But I mean, right now, unfortunately, Roddy Piper died at the worst time possible. If that's humanly possible to say,
well,
it's true because
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's ever a right time to die, but yeah, I know it's.
But
it's weird. It's weird, right? And it's kind of eerie. Dusty Rhodes passes away.
Mm-hmm.
Hulk Hogan doesn't die, but the image of Hulk Hogan as we know him. I mean, there are a lot of fans that apparently forgive him and whatever, but I feel like if there's ever going to be a nail in the coffin to the Hulk Hogan image and the memory of Hulk Hogan, besides him dying, I think this last controversy is that. As far as at least like to a majority of fans, that watch WWE. And after that, Roddy Piper. That's crazy, man. Just it's weird. It's eerie.
Yeah, put it this way. Again, if you've never seen Piper, go back and watch the Royal Rumble. I believe it was 2008, the one in the Garden where Cena won. Piper's a surprise appearance in that, and just listen to the crowd reaction when his music hits, and that'll kind of tell you all you need to know.
Yeah, I don't know what could have caused his death. I mean, I'm not gonna. Some people are asking me, "What do you think happened?" I'm not gonna speculate. I don't know. I don't know if he. I don't know if he put anything in his body. I don't know if he was having health issues at the time. I would imagine if he had cardiac arrest, he must have had some type of underlying issue. Maybe just from taking a toll, being in the ring, and and on the road, and who knows? Maybe he had his vices. I'm not the person to really ask about that. I'm not really sure. I didn't know the guy personally. I'm sure it'll come out pretty soon, but right now I don't know, and I don't want to speculate.
No, I mean, it could just be one of those things, like you said, the body takes its toll. I mean, when Eddie Guerrero passed, there was nothing in the system, but it was just years of, abuse, and, well, his was a little different, of course. But
his also had, like, heavy steroid abuse, too, and, there was a lot of...
Yeah, it was different, but, I mean, sometimes, just your body, he's been a performer for, 40 years. I mean, your body just eventually shuts down, and that's what might have happened here. Unfortunately, there might not be a legit reason for it; it just might have happened.
Yeah. Marcus Ryan quotes him: "You don't throw rocks at a man with a machine gun."
That was one of his quotes. Yes, it was.
Yeah. Let's see. Hogan is the same age as Roddy. That's eerie. Bro Levers, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff had his battle with health problems. Was in great shape still. I hope he can share his thoughts on Hot Rod. I'm sure he will. He's Hot Rod's forever intertwined with Paul Orndorff, with that original WrestleMania era, Rock and Wrestling era. He's intertwined with Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., Mr. T, Hulk Hogan. Those guys, and Vince McMahon, of course, behind the scenes. Those guys are all linked.
Oh yeah,
are all linked for sure. Okay, we'll take a couple more here. What is your favorite match, Roddy Piper? I mentioned before, I love this match with Bret Hart. I believe it was WrestleMania. Was it WrestleMania 8 or 9? I think it was WrestleMania 8, right? Or was it 7?
I'm sorry, what? The Bret Hart was WrestleMania 8,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, WrestleMania 8. I wasn't a great match, but I did love the moment. I think it was Starrcade '96. It could be wrong. It could be Halloween Havoc '96 when the Hulk Hogan passed out in the sleeper, and the ref raised Hulk's hand and it fell, and the crowd went absolutely nuts, and everybody thought he won the world title, only for WCW to say, "Yeah, non-title match." Which
Yeah, wasn't his foot was under the ropes?
I think it was just a
Because they had a
non-title
match
match.
before that. They had a match before that, which might have been the Starrcade match. I think it was, and that's what happened. And then they had a second match. I think it was at like the February pay-per-view
Mm-hmm.
or something, and that's when it happened. Because Piper thought he won the. Well, was it that? No, now
Maybe
you're
it was.
confusing me. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a
No, I
long
know.
time.
I remember. I think both things happened.
Okay.
I think he did one time and it was a non-title, and then the other time it was, oh no, Hogan had his foot under the ropes. I believe is what happened because he debuted at Halloween Havoc, which means he probably it was at Starrcade, and then yeah, from there.
Yeah, Ronda Rousey has decided to dedicate her fight to Roddy Piper, and
You knew that was coming. Nothing wrong with that.
yeah, and I think for sure Ronda's gonna destroy Betch Kohea, perhaps take her arm home or her head home, or both, at UFC 190 Saturday night, and yeah, it'll be a nice win for the late great Roddy Piper. Cyndi Lauper is also a link to Roddy Piper from that rock and wrestling era. I'm so in the first WrestleMania, of course. I'm so sad to tweet that my friend Roddy Piper passed away last night. He was really such a sweet man. My heart is with his family.
Okay, you know what, Fred? Not to interrupt you. You were right about the Starrcade, and then I had the Super Bowl where that same thing happened. The Starrcade match was non-title. You're right, and Piper won. And then at Super Bowl, it was the same thing where it was for the title. He had him beat, and then Randy Savage. It was like that whole cluster WCW ending.
Yeah.
But interesting side note: when Hogan lost to Piper at Starrcade, it was his first loss clean since WrestleMania 6.
Wow.
How about that? And that was what 15 years. I mean,
That's crazy.
nah, 8 years. I'm sorry, whatever it
Yeah,
was.
it's still a
Still,
long time. Yeah, that's still a long time.
I'm at work. My numbers are off. You got to excuse me.
My buddy at Mo Al Hosani, who's also UFC's first Arabic commentator, he says my favorite Roddy Piper match was at WrestleMania 8. Yeah, the one I was talking about, which I keep calling WrestleMania 9. My bad. It was considered a passing of the torch to Bret the Hitman Hart at the time. Yeah,
That had one of the coolest endings I ever saw to the match too.
yeah, and didn't they weren't even supposed to gig, but Bret Hart secretly gigged in the match.
I believe so.
He
Yeah.
secretly bladed, and it just enhanced it even more. I mean, those two were workers, and aren't they cousins or were cousins? I think they were distant cousins.
Oh, I'm not. I'm not 100% sure on that
Pretty
one. I'd have to
sure.
do some research.
Let me look that up right now. Bret Hart, Roddy Piper, cousin. I think technically they are. Okay, they refer to each other as cousins. So they're sort of they're loose cousins, but they were very close.
Yeah.
They were very very close. God, hardcore WWE had to remind me of the time when Roddy Piper did that shoot on Vince Russo in TNA.
Good times, good times. I'm glad I didn't watch TNA then, but I do know what he's talking about.
Me either. Me either. I mean, I know the context of what he said, but I'm not gonna repeat it
Yeah.
here because that's yeah. All right, one last one right here. All right, actually, George texted me. What do you say here? What I'm gonna remember most about Roddy Piper is that he was at the top of his game and went out of his way to make you hate him. He never tried to be the cool heel. He tried his very best to just be the heel. If the more you were booing him, the better he was doing his job. Can't argue with that.
Yeah. No, that pretty much nails it right there. I mean, yeah. that's yeah. There's not a lot to say after that. I mean, yeah, the more you booed him, the more he knew he was doing his job. That's 100% accurate.
That is true. That is true. Well, I think I think that's all the time we got, and we were in some more comments in. I was going to get Paul Lazenby on here, as well as Victor Sosa of Wrestling Weekly, to talk about Roddy Piper. Victor Sosa is actually kind of in an awkward position right now. He's in in Charlotte, North Carolina, for the Mid Atlantic Legends Fan Fest, which features Les Thatcher, Lance Storm, Rip Rogers, Dr. Tom Pritchard, Jim Ross, a ton of people who all at the same time found out the news about Roddy Piper, who all worked closely with them at one time or another. So sure, it's and they were having their Mid Atlantic Legends Hall of Fame induction ceremony. So I'd imagine it's a very emotional night for everybody involved, which is just a sad story. So we'll definitely try to get Vic, and I'll try to get Les Thatcher as well on here in a few days to talk about everything that's going on. Sent DDP, who's a friend of the show, a text earlier. It sucks for him. He was really tight with Roddy Piper. Dusty Rhodes was one of his biggest mentor outside of Jake the Snake Roberts as far as helping him go as far as he did, and Roddy Piper was another one, and yeah, I can only imagine, man. It's just bittersweet. So, folks, we're gonna get going. We want to thank you so much for the time. If you enjoyed the life and times of Roddy Piper, please feel free to leave a comment below. Maybe we didn't get to your question. Maybe for whatever reason you couldn't get through to Skype or Twitter or whatever. Leave us a comment below. Let us know what your favorite memory is. If you want to link a funny Piper's Pit segment, feel free to do that. Please feel free to spread the good word about TSC News, and we will do our job and keep you posted on this unfortunate tragedy, as well as all things pro wrestling. So, until next time, everybody, as always, enjoy the matches. Please, especially for younger fans, go do your due diligence and check out the greatness that is the Hot Rod. And what else is there to say other than rest in peace, Roddy.